Hey everyone, I figured out how to use LabView to and Arduino, where you can turn a potentiometer and then you can turn a servo motor. For example, I got the potentiometer here and I have the servo motors here on this little robot. If I turn it, I can turn the servos. So the first thing is I looked for a couple of examples. There was one called Servo, so I just went to help and I said search and keyword Servo, and I found the LINX Servo 1 channel. And so I opened that one up, and then there was another one. Um, there was another example for analog, and it's the LINX analog read 1 channels. Okay. So I open up those two samples. I have this is the servo sample, and basically you can select the port and the channel that the servo is in on your Arduino board, and you can turn the little wheel here and you can make the servo turn. Okay. Now what I want to do is I also want to have a potentiometer, right? A physical potentiometer that I can turn, and so when I turn it, the wheels actually turn as well. So I want to use both the potentiometer and this little wheel. So then I went ahead and looked at that other example that you have here, and it's the analog read one. So now I have a way to read analog values and also a way to turn a servo motor. So now that I have both of these, I can work with this. So what I did was I basically, if you look at the block diagram here, and you look at the block diagram for the analog channel one, let's see, it's right, this one. Okay, so I have the servo one and I have the analog one. So what I did was I just copied this whole thing. And I just said copy, and I pasted it over here. Let me scroll up a little more. Pasted it over here, and then I can move it here. And then what I did was I started moving a few things down here on my servo area. So I moved the analog input one, I moved the analog read and the loop rate, and that was it. I moved it over here and then I wired it. So let me show you what that looks like already wired. All right, so I'm reading the potentiometer from a specific channel, and we want to keep the loop rate so that it reads the channel at the correct rate. Now, before I do that, let me show you using context help. If you look at this analog read, what we're reading is a voltage, a difference in voltage, basically. So when I turn the potentiometer on the analog input, I'm changing the voltage between, and it varies between 0 and 5 volts, right? Because the analog out is between 0 and 5 volts, basically. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'll show you what it looks like already combined. So here we go. So this is already combined. Actually, no, this is the one that I was working on. Let me close it. Let me go to the one that I combined already. There we go. So this is already combined as a single program. So again, I moved the channel, the analog read in here, and what I did was I wired it before the servo. So I wired it before the servo, and then I wired this one before the servo, and then the output of it, of the voltage, was a double. Okay, but the input of the servo is basically an unsigned integer. So what I needed to do was I found a conversion that converted it from double to an unsigned integer value. And that's typically over here where you go to numeric and you can go to conversion, and you can actually find a bunch of converters here. So I was able to find one over here for unsigned word integer basically. And so then now I converted the signal going from a double to an integer. But the output was between 0 and 5 volts. And the output that the servo needs is between 0 and between 500 and 2500 basically. So I multiplied it by 500 so that I could actually get a higher value. But then I wanted to be able to use not only the potentiometer, but I also wanted to be able to use this little wheel here because I like to be able to virtually move it, or I like to actually turn it physically. So what I did was I did an OR, and to get an OR you just go to comparisons here, Boolean, and then you can find an OR. And so I ORed it. I said I can either do the wheel, which is this one, or I can do the actual analog output of my potentiometer, and I multiply by 500, and I'm also displaying the values here. That's how I found out that my voltage output was actually very small, and I had to multiply by 500. Okay, so I added a little display here, an indicator. Other than that, I didn't really change anything else other than adding the analog input in between, right, the servo function here. So the analog input function before the servo function, and then did a little multiplication here, and changed the data type, and did an OR, so I could use either or. All right, so now I'm going to run it, and you'll see. There we go. I'll open it here. Okay. So basically, to run it, I'm only going to run it once, not continuously, because I want to be able to stop the program from here. Otherwise, the channel gets stuck. One of the things you want to do is you want to plug in your Arduino, and then make sure that you have power to everything, to your servo, and your potentiometer is connected to analog input 1. And you can do a refresh here to make sure your Arduino port shows up, and select it. Select the servo channel ahead of time. I have it on port 9 on my Arduino, and the analog input channel is 0. Okay, so then I'm just going to say run here. And I'm going to wait until it starts generating a signal here. And so that means it's ready to go. So if you look here, and I do this, okay, you see the wheel turning, and you see that this is the milliseconds here, microseconds actually, the microseconds of the pulse width. All right, so one way it goes all the way up, and then another way it goes below it. Okay. So you start playing with that, but you can also do it with the wheel here, virtually. Right. You can actually see it turning. If I go the other way, the wheel turns the other way. Right. So now, let me see if I can have them both here. Right. And for some reason, it doesn't want to show the camera at the same time. There we go. Maybe there. All right. Not yet. Anyways, you can see that it's actually turning, and then you can stop the program with the stop sign here. By the way, you can see over here how high the voltage goes also. Actually, only with the potentiometer. It's not connected to the wheel here. Only to the potentiometer here. Okay. But anyways, I'll put it back to about 1500 to stop it. Yeah, about there. Okay, and then we can hit the stop button here. And that's it. So have fun with it, and that's how you do that. It was fun to figure it out.